There's a moment every man has felt. A moment when everything changes. It starts out small. You meet a woman. You like her. She seems interested too. The conversation flows. The energy feels easy. There's tension, curiosity, possibility. And for a brief moment, you are calm. You are relaxed. You are yourself. You are not trying to win her. You are not trying to prove anything. And that's exactly why she feels drawn to you. But then something happens. Maybe she pulls back a little. Maybe she takes longer to reply. Maybe she laughs with another guy. Maybe you feel her attention shift. And suddenly, the energy in you changes. Now you're thinking too much. Now you're checking your phone. Now you're replaying every conversation in your head. Now you're wondering what you did wrong. And without realizing it, you begin to chase. That's the moment you lose power. Not because she is cruel. Not because dating is unfair. Not because you are not enough. But because the moment you start chasing, you stop standing in your own value. And people can feel that. They always can. You see, power in relationships was never about controlling someone. It was never about manipulation. It was never about acting cold or pretending not to care. Real power is much quieter than that. Real power is emotional steadiness. It is self-respect. It is the ability to want someone without collapsing into the need for them. That is what most men never learn. They think power comes from effort, from saying the perfect thing, from being more available, from proving loyalty, from showing how much they care. But attraction does not work that way. The harder a man chases, the more he communicates one thing. I have placed you above me. And the moment that happens, the whole dynamic changes. Because now, you are no longer connecting. You are seeking. You are no longer expressing interest. You are asking for permission. You are no longer choosing. You are hoping to be chosen. And that shift is everything. Think about the man she first noticed. He was grounded. He was present. He was not rushing. He was not trying to squeeze certainty out of every interaction. He was simply there, comfortable in his skin, comfortable in silence, comfortable with not knowing what would happen next. That energy is powerful. Why? Because it feels safe. It feels rare. It feels like a man who has a life, a center, a direction, a man who is not empty. But the moment he starts chasing, all of that begins to disappear. Now his texts are too frequent. Now his tone feels anxious. Now every conversation has hidden pressure inside it. Now his attention stops feeling clean and starts feeling heavy. This is what many men do not understand. Women do not only respond to words, they respond to emotional weight. And chasing has weight. A heavy weight. It says, "Please give me something back so I can feel okay." That is exhausting to feel on the other side. Even if she cannot explain it, she feels it. And once she feels that neediness, something inside her starts pulling away. Not always because she dislikes you. Sometimes because she no longer feels your strength. Sometimes because what was once attractive now feels unstable. Sometimes because your attention stopped being a gift and became a demand. That's the tragedy of chasing. A man thinks he is fighting for connection, but what he is often doing is draining the very thing he wants to keep alive. I once saw this happen to a man who had everything going for him. Smart, calm, well-spoken, good job, good heart. When he first met this woman, she was deeply drawn to him. She would text first. She would ask questions. She would find excuses to be around him. And he did nothing magical. He was just solid. But the moment he became emotionally attached, fear entered the room. Now he needed constant reassurance. If she took too long to reply, he spiraled. If she sounded slightly different, he panicked. If she made plans without him, he felt rejected. And slowly, the man she was attracted to disappeared. In his place was a man trying to hold on, a man reaching, a man over-explaining, a man trying to lock down certainty from someone who was never meant to carry his emotional balance. That relationship did not end because he cared too much. It ended because his care turned into dependence, and dependence changes the way you show up. It makes you abandon your own rhythm, your own standards, your own peace. Suddenly, your whole emotional world depends on how one person responds to you. That is not love. That is surrender. And surrender, without trust, is desperation. The deepest problem with chasing is not that it makes you look weak. It is that it makes you forget yourself. A man in his power has a life he respects. He has boundaries. He has priorities. He has things that matter outside of being wanted. But once he starts chasing, all of that fades into the background. Now his mood depends on her attention. Now his confidence depends on her response. Now his sense of worth rises and falls with her interest. That is where power dies, because power cannot live where self-abandonment begins. Read that again in your spirit. Power cannot live where self-abandonment begins. The man who chases stops listening to himself. He ignores red flags. He tolerates disrespect. He accepts crumbs and calls it patience. He keeps giving when the energy is no longer being returned. Why? Because he is no longer operating from choice. He is operating from fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. And fear always makes people act beneath themselves. That is why chasing is never just about romance. It reveals something deeper. It reveals the places in a man where he still does not believe he is enough without external validation. That's why some men can be successful, attractive, admired, and still fall apart over one woman going cold. Because this is not about logic. It is about attachment. It is about identity. It is about the pain of feeling unseen. And when that pain gets activated, many men start chasing not because the woman is special, but because the rejection touches an old wound. Now, he is not just texting her. He is trying to prove something to himself. He is trying to win back a feeling. He is trying to escape the terror of not being chosen. That is why the smartest advice is often the hardest to follow. Slow down. Pull back. Get centered. Not as a tactic, as a return to self. Because the answer is not to become cold. The answer is not to play games. The answer is not to punish someone for not choosing you. The answer is to remember who you were before you started begging energy from the outside. You were calm. You were present. You were whole. That is the version of you people respect, not the performing version, not the anxious version, not the version trying to earn love through overextension. There is a powerful difference between pursuing and chasing. Pursuing is clean. Pursuing says, I like you, I'm interested. Let's see where this goes. Chasing says, please don't leave. Please choose me. Please make me feel secure. One comes from confidence. The other comes from fear. One keeps your dignity. The other slowly strips it away. And people can feel the difference almost immediately. The hardest truth is this. Many men lose power long before the relationship ends. They lose it the moment they start overvaluing the other person and undervaluing themselves. That's when they begin negotiating against their own worth. That's when they become available for anything. That's when they stop asking, does this work for me too? And start asking only, what do I need to do to keep her? But love that requires you to abandon yourself is too expensive. Attention that costs your peace is too expensive. Connection that demands your dignity is too expensive. The right woman will not need you to shrink, chase, beg, or perform. And the right version of you would never agree to that anyway. So what should a man do when he feels himself starting to chase? First, tell the truth. Not to her, to yourself. I'm afraid right now. That honesty matters, because once you name it, you stop being controlled by it. Second, come back to your life, your body, your work, your purpose, your routines, your friendships, your center. Chasing happens when one person becomes too large in your mind. Shrink the fantasy. Return to reality. Third, stop trying to force clarity from people who are confused. If someone likes you, you will not have to decode basic respect. If someone values you, you will not have to beg for consistency. And if someone is unsure, let them be unsure from a distance. Your job is not to convince. Your job is to observe. Fourth, remember this. Rejection does not remove your value. Distance does not reduce your worth. A delayed text is not a verdict on your soul. Sometimes people pull away because they are inconsistent. Sometimes because they are damaged. Sometimes because they are distracted. Sometimes simply because they are not your person. Do not turn every disconnect into a courtroom where your worth is on trial. And finally, protect your energy. Not by becoming hard, but by becoming rooted. A rooted man can care deeply without falling apart. He can want someone without worshiping them. He can feel disappointment without chasing closure. He can love without losing himself. That is power. Quiet power. Stable power. The kind of power that does not beg. The kind of power that does not panic. The kind of power that remains even when someone walks away. Because at the end of the day, the men who keep their power are not the men who never feel desire. They are the men who refuse to trade their self-respect for attention. They are the men who understand that the moment you start chasing, you are no longer relating from strength. You are relating from lack. And lack has a smell. People feel it. But so does peace. So does self-possession. So does a man who knows this simple truth. I can want you. I can appreciate you. I can even care for you deeply. But I will not chase you at the cost of myself. That is where power returns. And that is where real connection begins.